Hi, my name is Denny, and this video is going to show you about my Inkle Loom. This is the Inkle Loom. It's a specific kind of a loom. Looms have been around for thousands of years, but this particular type of a loom is used to weave cordage, string, yarn, thread, and create something narrow like this band. With an Inkle Loom, you can create sashes, you can create belts, hat bands, shoulder straps, all kinds of narrow band type material. So that's what an Inkle Loom is for, as opposed to a regular loom. If you're starting out, I strongly recommend you use yarn. Yarn is very inexpensive, it's very easy to work with, it's colorful, it's a good place to start. As you can see, this loom consists basically of a wood frame and a series of dowel pegs that stick out of it. One dowel is a little different from the rest, and that's this one on the end. It has a screw on one side that allows me to tighten and loosen it and adjust the tension. So that's this one here. That's the most complex part of this loom. This is a homemade loom. I made it in my cellar in about 4 hours. You can purchase an Inkle Loom online for about 100 to 150 bucks. Surely the ones that you buy online are well made, hardwood, finished nicely. But if you've seen any of my videos on YouTube, you may know that I'm a cheapskate. So when I saw the price of purchasing an Inkle Loom, I decided it looks simple enough, I think I can make it. And that's where this came from. I built it from scrap wood that I had hanging around, the dowels I had hanging around. The only thing I actually had to buy was the wing nut, which is used to do this adjustment, and the bolt that's attached to. So those two pieces cost me a grand total of $2.37 over at Home Depot, and that, aside from some of my own labor, that's the cost of my Inkle Loom. Other than that, you've got some strings here. These little pieces of string are just being stored here for the time being. These are called the heddles. I will show you how they work and how I make them. Essentially, the heddles are the device that's used to hold one of every other thread in place. So you're going to use a heddle on every other thread as you work on your project. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start out by placing a push pin in the end of my loom. Eventually I'm going to have some removable pegs down here that are like golf tees or something like that. But for now, a push pin will suffice. I'm just going to tie the end of the yarn, the blue yarn, to this. Now the blue yarn is going to be the edge piece, and it's going to match the what goes on the weft thread. So the warp are the long threads that go around the loom. The weft are the short threads that go back and forth across the weft. So I want my edge to have a blue edge to it. So I'm going to use blue on the edges and blue on my shuttle. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go around a series of pegs here, and I don't need to use all the pegs, so I'm going to skip this one and go to this one, and I'm going to skip this one and going to bring it all the way around like this. This is the first warp, and that one goes over the top of this pin. It doesn't have to, I could go under it, but I've chosen to go over the top, and that is going to be a heddle thread. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to tie this off for a sec, not tie it, just loop it off. And I'm going to take my heddle, my first heddle, and you can see there's a knot right there. I'm going to take this knot and make sure it goes under the pin, this peg, and I'm going to bring my heddle like this and then over the top of that thread. Back over the heddle pin, and it's just going to hold it in place just like that. Now I can unwind this and continue, and I'm going to do 3 times around. So that's 1, this is 2, and make sure that you always follow the same path. If you hit the wrong pegs, you're in trouble. Except for this one. This one is the one peg that every other wrap is going to be either above it or below it. So this one's going to miss that. That's a non-heddle thread, so there's no heddle involved here. And again, the 3rd time around, this one is going to be a heddle thread. This way, skip that one, over the top, come around, and I'm just going to hold it off for a sec by just putting a little extra tie around here, like that. Whoop. I knew it wasn't going to stay. Come on, how about this one? 2, 3, stay there, stay there. Let me get another heddle out of my pile of heddles, and the same thing, trying to keep the knots low so that they don't interfere with the work, and just going to capture that like that. And so here's the edge of my project. I've got 3 warps on the pegs, 2 above, 1 below. Now I'm going to switch colors. Now, there's a couple different ways to switch colors. You could tie it off on another peg down here and just start, and when you're done you'll have loose ends, and all you have to do is tie all the loose ends together. Or if you want, you could cut the yarn and tie the next color on. Now the next color I want is gold. So I've got some gold yarn down here. I'm going to go, according to this peg, I'm just going to cut just past that peg. And I'm going to find, whoops, the end of my gold yarn, which is sitting down here, just out of camera. And I'm going to tie these 2 together. And I'm going to do 1 time around in gold, and it's going to be a non-heddle, so it's going to bypass that top pin. Come around this way, avoid that one, bypass that pin, and that's it. Now I want to switch to brown, and this is kind of a pain in the neck way to do it, but it ends up a little bit easier to manage. I don't like having the loose strands hanging out at the as they go around. So I'm going to cut and tie for every time around here for the next several. So I'm cutting right at the same spot. I'm going to make a knot here, and these knots hold pretty well. The one thing about yarn is that you put a knot in it and it just stays there. So, alright, now I'm going to do a brown with a heddle. So it goes following the same pattern, up and over. This one goes over the top, around and down, and I'm ready to cut again. But before I do that, how about if I put the heddle on? So let me just loop it around for just a sec. Grab a heddle, like so, over the top, and there we go. Now I'm going to snip it and back to gold again. And I'm just going to keep doing this until I have 8 strands. Okay, so let me get a close-up of this color exchange that I'm doing, if I can, without getting my fingers in the way. Right now I'm working on this brown, and I'm going to just hold it in position with my finger here, and I'm going to leave a little excess and just snip it off right about here. Alright, I've got a gold yarn ready to go, so I'm going to bring that in, and just for a second I'm going to take it off of that peg, and I'm just going to tie these two together, and I'm using a square knot so it's around and around again like so, and now I just continue wrapping as I had been going. Okay, so that's it. It leaves all your knots roughly, by using that snip method where you're holding the thread and cutting in the same place, almost all of your knots end up in the same place, which makes it kind of neat. Now you can see here's my heddles holding this one, every other strand holding all of these down are the heddles, and then in between each of the heddles is a non-heddle, and you can see that the heddles over here are all brown and the non-heddles that are behind are all yellow. So when I bring that down, you can see the color change right there, right? And same thing on the other side. It's all brown on the right and yellow on the left, but then when I go down, now yellow is on the right and brown is on the left. So color alternating. The last thing I got to do is I have my loose end up here that I started with, and I have this end here that I finished with, and all I'm going to do is tie those two together. Okay, so here's how I'm going to finish this. I'm going to unwind this, make sure it's not caught on anything. Now you notice this one comes over the top of the peg, but the first one goes under the peg. So I'm just going to let this hang here for just a sec here. I'm just going to loop it so it doesn't fall off. This one I'm going to snip it right off, just like that. And I'm just going to tie these two ends together. Give me a little slack here. The beginning yarn and the ending yarn, we're just going to put the two together and they will follow around. Now I should set it up so that it's underneath here someplace. Tie this off the best I can, like this, like that. There you go. Okay, so that is it. All the threads, the loom is ready to go. All the threads are in place. Okay, now that my loom is all wrapped up with the yarn. I'm ready to start weaving. The only thing is one more term that you should know when weaving, and that would be this area right here. Okay, I'm just going to hold these threads down for a moment. These are my non-heddle threads. I'm just going to hold them down. You can see what the heddle does though. The heddle holds these threads at an angle. See right there. See how they come down and then they angle out. All right. These are my non-heddle threads, and when they're pushed down, they make this triangular area right in here. That triangular area is called the shed, and this is where you will be passing the shuttle back and forth. Goes through the shed. Now you go through the shed one time with the non-heddle threads down in the down position, and the next time the non-heddle threads will be in the up position. I'm holding them up, and I will pass the shuttle through here, and you can see how the heddles are held in place. And now the shed is this triangular area in the upper part. So you've got a shed that's over the heddles, and you have a shed, a shed that's under the heddles. So that's how the weaving process takes place. That's how the color changes take place, is because of that shed. So now I'm going to reposition the camera and myself, and I'll start weaving. Now you're looking at the loom from roughly my perspective, and here is my shuttle, my funky looking shuttle. Now the shuttle has some yarn on it already left over from a previous project, but it just happens to be the same yarn that I used on the edges here from my previous project. So rather than put new yarn on here, I'm going to use up what's on this shuttle, and then I'll show you how to make a splice. But to begin, it's a little tricky to begin with. I'm just going to pass the shuttle through, and I'm going to leave the thread loose on one end here. All right, so now I'm just going to start it like that. No big deal, doesn't have to be in any particular place or anything. I'm going to bring the shed up and slide these things down like this. All right, now this is what my beater is used for, is to keep things kind of straight. Now I can also use the beater like this to hold the shed open. I'm going to pass the loose end through one time, and I'm going to pass the shuttle through in the opposite direction. So I'm weaving actually in both directions at the same time. I don't want to pull this too tight, but I don't want it to slip either. So I'm just going to beat that down a little bit, keep it straight. And again, now I'm going to bring the shed down. So I push down on those same threads, and you can see the pattern is starting to emerge already. Right? I've got blue, I've got gold, then I have a brown, actually a blue divider in the center, and then brown. So once again, holding the shed open, I'm going to take this loose end and I'm going to pass it through. And this is exactly how you make a splice as well. So, and again, pass my shuttle through. I'm going to beat it down a little bit just to keep it nice and straight, and then raise my threads above the heddle and tap it down. And now you can see that alternating pattern starting to emerge. Now, I'm going to, again, use the beater to hold the shed open. I'm going to pass through this yarn. I'm going to pass through my shuttle, tap it down just a smidge, and then lower the heddle threads again. And you can see that the pattern is emerging right off the bat. Now I think I've got enough started where I can finish with that blue, this piece here, that little loose end. And how I'm going to take care of that is I'm going to pass this through, but this time I'm going to put this yarn like this. I'm going to bring it through before the last thread. The shuttle's going to go through the opposite direction, and it's going to kind of lock that piece in place right there. Now I reverse the shed, and this yarn is going to end up just kind of sticking out. But once I get a few more passes here, I'll be able to snip this off right even with the end, and you'll never see it. So now it's just a matter of weaving and keeping the same tension as you go along. So the tension is what adjusts the loops on the edges. So I'm just going to go down like that, tap it down, hold it open, pass through again, tap it, raise the threads over the heddle. I find this natural yarn, this is 100% wool yarn. It's a little grabbier than the synthetic stuff. So if you're going to start out learning how to do this, you might want to start with a synthetic yarn. Lower my, and there we go. So now you can see as it's going along the progress, and it's just a matter of doing 20 inches of this stuff. So I'm going to continue weaving until my work area is full, and once that work area is full, I'm going to show you how I advance the warp so I can continue weaving. That's one thing about this design on my loom, is the work area is the area, let me back off a little bit. The work area for this loom is actually between this adjustment peg on the end and the heddles where they come in right here. So my work area is actually only about so big. So because of that, I can only weave about maybe 3 inches before I have to advance my my warp. And if I had to do it all over again, this piece on my loom, this long leg that sticks out, I would have made it maybe another 10 inches longer, out to about here or so. So it would give me a longer area, work area on the loom. So I wouldn't have to stop to advance my work as I go along. So that's just a heads up. Anyone who's planning on building their own loom, if you're going to build your own loom, you might want to consider making this section right here longer by a few inches. And the longer it is, the more work area you've got. The other thing. So I'm going to continue weaving for a little while, and when I'm ready to advance my work around the pegs, I'll come back and show you how that works. Alright, so here we are all of about 5 minutes, if that, later, and as you can see, my beater bar is almost like unable to maneuver in this work area anymore. So what I like to do is, while it's in the lower position, in other words below the heddles, that is when I like to advance the work. Now to advance the work, here you're going to have to bear with me for a sec while I position this camera. I'm going to first loosen the nut, and I'm going to just take some of the pressure off this piece here. Now I can use the beater to pull on these threads, but as I pull, this whole thing is going to have to go around and around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assist it by pulling in the opposite direction on these threads right here. These move this way, this moves this way. So just gonna give it, I don't know if you can see that, it's pulling a little bit. Now you see my heddles are moving along with it, so I'm just gonna use the beater to push those heddles back. And what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to get this area right where the beater is as close to this peg as possible. So I want to advance this, and again I'm going to have to pull it again like this. All right, so you can see now I'm down to about where this peg is. Now I can pull back on it again. I've loosened the nut, and I'm tensioning, putting more tension back on this piece, and I'm going to tighten it. Oop, the whole thing wants to move. I usually brace it against my chest. So let me just bear with me here. Put a little tension on it and tighten the nut again and straighten my heddles. Now I have a new shed area to work in, and this is my workspace from the old work up to the heddles again. So I have this much room to continue weaving. So it's been a couple days now, and as you can see, I've only gotten this far, which is 34 inches. I haven't been really busy working at this thing, but you know, I just do it when I have a chance. But the ultimate goal here is to create 2 matching garters. Now this is going to be one of them, and then I have all this yarn left to go up on top, which is another 54 inches worth, believe it or not, from about the middle of this peg here, the above one. There's about 52 to 54 inches till you reach the top up here. So now what I want to do is I want to make both of the garters at the same time on the same warp threads. So if I want to advance this point here where I left off, and I want to move the warp threads down to start a new piece and leave a space in between, I have to determine how I want to finish the ends. So let me talk about finishing off the ends. This is the sample piece I made a little while back, and it is roughly the same width as the project I'm currently working on. And what I decided to do, because it's rather small, I just decided to put one big old knot right in the end of it and finish it like that. So that is an option. You can just tie a knot in the ends and call it a day. So to do that wouldn't require a lot of material. However, on the project that I'm trying to match, what I did was I braided the ends into little pigtails, and then I knotted it. So if I'm going to make something that matches, I can choose to braid the ends instead. So that's going to require a little bit more. Here's another variation on that, a narrower piece. Not quite as wide, maybe it's about the same width. About the same width as the single knot one. But what I did here is I made a short braid, but I just braided the whole bunch into one big thing. I'm really not too thrilled with that one. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to try and match this by making 2 small braids on the end. Now in order to do 2 small braids, I have to leave enough yarn so that I can braid maybe a couple of inches. This is about 2.5 inches right there. So plus there's a little bit of fringe on the end, so let's just call it 4 inches altogether. So if I'm going to advance my warp threads, what I want to do is I want to leave about an 8 to 10 inch gap between the work that I'm finishing right now and where I start a new project. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to start by disconnecting the weft thread that is connected to the shuttle here, and I want to weave this in with the tail. So I'm going to leave about 6 or 7 inches on there. Be generous. It's going to get cut off in the end anyway. So now I've disconnected my shuttle. I'm going to take my beater out of here. All right. Going to loosen my tension adjustment. I'm going to grab the threads here and pull. And now I don't want my heddles to get too carried away, so I'm going to just push them back every now and then, and I'm just going to pull it until I advance about 8 inches or so. I got extra yarn, so I'm not worried too much about it. Again, not letting the heddles get too carried away here. Again, I'm just going to pull, and let's see, that might do it right there. Let's just put a ruler on this. Let's assume I'm going to start right about here. So I'm just going to move the ruler down, and I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you can see that. There's 9 inches to where the other project starts. So I'm going to be a little generous, and I'm just going to move this just a little bit more. Make it about 10 inches. So back to my heddles again here. Just going to straighten those out. Put the tension back on. A little bit much right there. And I'm ready to start another section. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start weaving again. I'm just going to start out by going from both sides at the same time. So I've run a short piece through the warp threads to start with, and I'll just reverse the heddles here. Make a nice straight line, and I'm going to go through from both sides to begin with. So shuttle through on one way and the extra little tail through the other way. Let me just pull these together a bit and beat it down. Lower the shed, and looks like we're off and running. Okay, so started my second garter. Let me do a little more weaving, and when I run out of yarn on my shuttle, I'm going to show you how to splice in a new piece without necessarily making a knot. Okay, so I have been weaving for just about 55, maybe 50 minutes, 50 or 55 minutes, and I've already gone 24 inches. Unfortunately, my shuttle has run out of yarn, so I had to put some more yarn on it. And now I have to make a splice. So I said I'd show you how I make a splice, so this is how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to keep weaving with this loose piece here, which is the tail end of what was already on the shuttle. So let me just weave that down a little bit further, like
that. Bring it through a couple more times maybe. Alright, another one. And one more. I'll do one more. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the new yarn from the shuttle here. So I'm going to go from both sides. This one's coming out this side. So I'm going to bring the shuttle in. I'm going to bring the shuttle in from this side here. Alright, so now I have two loose ends. And this one's going to go through. But this one, I'm going to poke it up through. I'm just going to put it right between that blue yarn here, alright, and the yellow one. Just going to tuck it right in there. Leave a little bit of a tail. Then I bring the other one, the loose end, this one, through, and let me lock that in like this. Alright, and this I'm just going to leave dangle there for a second. Now I'm going to bring this one through again, and I'm going to pass the shuttle back the other direction. Alright, so I'm weaving from both sides now. Let's bring that up. Not easy to do with a camera tripod going through my armpit here, but you get the idea. Trying to give you the best angle. Alright, here's that loose end again. Through, shuttle, whoop, through. Just make sure the tension stays on there. Beat it down. And this time I'm going to pass this one through, and I'm going to bring it between the last two fibers here, and then back to doing the shuttle like normal, and raise my shed up. There we go. And now it's back to the regular pattern of weaving. Over, under, and keep on going. So let me do a couple more, and I'll show you how that comes out. Alright. Go through here again. Alright, so you can see now it's just back to the regular routine of weaving normally. And I'm going to end up with these little loose threads sticking out. This one over on this side and this one on this side. So take care of those. I'm going to bring in my scissors, snip them off just like that, and now you can see that it blends right in quite nicely, which is exactly what you want to do. I didn't want to have a knot in there, so just weaving in that tail piece and trimming it off like that works very well. So considering that it took me 55 minutes to go 24 inches, and I still have another 10 inches to go, I'm thinking I should be done with this project in about 20 minutes. And then I'll show you how I finish it up. I think I've reached my 34 inches. Let's find out. Alright, right about there. Come down through here, over the top, and 34 inches. So that's it. I am finished with the 2 pieces, and it's going to be time to take these 2 off of the loom. I'll cut them off, and I'll show you how we finish them up. So here's my finished product. I have actually 3 pieces on here. I have a very short piece here. I just decided just to weave this just for fun. That might make a bookmark or something like that. Then I have a section here that's unwoven. Here's all the knots that I made at the beginning of the project. Here's the very first weave that I made, and it proceeds all the way down to this point here, and then it is not woven. I left 10 inches between the 2, so I have a little room to weave a finish on this. The next one begins right here, continues around all the way to this point, and then I have another area here that is not woven. So it's time to separate this from the loom. And I'm going to start, I think, by cutting. I want to do this right in the center between these 2 areas, and I do believe right there is the center. Then I'm going to cut this loose up here. I'm going to cut below the knots over here just to make it easier, and cut the knots off here and here. Should make it easy to get out of the heddles. Let's see. There may be a knot left in there someplace. Come on. There we go. So now my heddles are free. And I have one more section here. Okay, here's one. Okay, there's one piece. Put that right there. Here's the second one, and I'm going to give myself a tail on this of about yay long. And then here's the third piece, which is just for fun. That one might make a bookmark or something. Okay, so to finish this off, I have a large spring clamp, and I've got a chair. And I'm just going to place my piece over the back of the chair and clamp it on just like that. These are the fibers I've got to work with, and there are at least 24 strands. There may be 25 because of the weft strand. No, there's not. There's not a weft on this one. So I did make a blue line right down the center consisting of 2 fibers. So if I just divide this into 2 right here, I should have 12 and 12. And what I'll do with this is I'll just take 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then 4 again. I'll try to do 2 gold and 2 brown. 1, 2, yeah, 3, 4. And the remainder will be 2 yellow, 1 brown, 1 blue. And what I'm going to do is just braid these pieces like you'd make a ponytail or whatever. Just do a 3-plait braid. Yeah, a little trouble getting started here, but there we go. Okay. Trying to keep everybody separated. Alright, and you just go as far as you can. You can make it tight, you can make it loose. It doesn't matter. I go as far as I can and then take the whole thing and knot it. Make sure all the fibers get through. And I want the knot to move down so I can see that nice braid, so slip that down as close to the end as possible and pull tight. And there's one, and then do the same thing over here. There's my braided ends for my little sample piece. And that's it. That's how I'm going to finish off the other ones. Then again, maybe I'll just put one single knot in. So, what do you like better? What do you like better? Pom-pom, just a big knot with a pom-pom kind of thing on the end, or the pigtails? I don't know, I'm kind of leaning toward the pom-pom look. Maybe that's the way I'll go. Maybe I'll just knot it off and call it a day. So that's my video. I hope you found it informative. I hope you are successful if you attempt to do some weaving on your own. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Bye-bye.